Hey there, guys and gals. Me, Jeffrey Summersky again. Today we're going to do another creepypasta, and this is a sequel to the Abandoned by Disney creepypasta, and this is created by Slime Beast. And it's called Room Zero. Note, this is a sequel to Abandoned by Disney, and I'm going to read this word for word as much as I can. So let's get to it and read Room Zero and see what it's got for us. A lot has been going on since my last post. I've received a lot of questions and concerns from folks who have read my first-hand account of Mowgli's Palace, a resort that was built and abandoned by Disney. It's been a while since I've written anything related to the Disney Corporation, and I'm pretty sure you can understand why. I've wanted to thank everyone who mirrored my post. It's been taken down from a few places, mostly corporate sites that were easily leaned on by a larger power. However, for every nuked topic or disappearing vlog post, it seems like 100 more have popped up. This is something that they will have to face. There's no turning back for them. None for me either. I'm definitely definitely being followed. For a month or two, I chalked up the paranoia. Any casual glance or half smile in my direction set me off. Hair standing on the back of the neck and everything. The first one I was able to spot was a telephone worker milling around my apartment complex. He was middle-aged, doughy, dressed like as you'd expect, but something just was off about him. I couldn't place it, but I knew this wasn't just my imagination acting up. He was awkward and out of place, not someone who was comfortable doing his routine job. I followed him around the corner only to lose him there. When I turned back to go home, there he was, staring directly at me about 10 feet behind me, expressionless and cold. "Exploring?" he asked. That's all he said, and there was an accusing tone to his voice. Tell me, what blue-collar phone jockey does that? I guess that's the worst part. Never feeling safe. Never feeling alone. That and the occasional Disney merchandise left somewhere for me to find. Little rubber Mickeys in the mailbox, a Disney Adventures magazine on my bookshelf. They hide little Mickeys everywhere. 3 circles, 1 big, 2 small, in the silhouette of the famous mouse's head. I started keeping a running list of Mickeys I found. Coffee cup rings on my coffee table, 1 big, 2 small colored glass bottles left on a doorstep, viewed from the top down, all red. Graffiti on the wall, my way to work, a huge earth, small sun and moon in the proper locations. They are everywhere. People have emailed me about this as well. If you repost anything I have to say, you're going to start finding these son of a bitch outlines, I guarantee it. The best one by far, one that actually made me laugh because of the horror of it all, was a drawing in chalk next to my car. I was taken aback at first, walking through the parking garage, keeping an eye out for people following me. The outline seemed like a perfect match for, well, a murder victim. You're probably familiar if you've read my past posts. Written in yellow paint, I'm sure, was a single word. Retract. The only good thing that had come out of this was that I know that I'm not the only one that has seen some that they shouldn't have. I'm not going to give out their names because, well, if I have to tell you why, you haven't been paying attention. Researcher goes to Disney parks whenever he can, all throughout the year. He's not going to have fun, enjoy the rides, or anything like that. He's looking for the gascots. There's been a long tradition, apparently, of people reporting strange patrons throughout the park. Silent, motionless, staring patrons of every age, shape, and size. Men and women, adults, children, and teens. All wearing Disney-themed gas masks. Way back then, when Disney would get tons of complaints about oddly dressed folks following others around the park. Folks who would then merge into the crowds and disappear. Later on, the gas masks caused folks to draw other conclusions and report of possible terrorists or bombers started flowing. All those reports mostly likely went straight into the trash can. I knew I couldn't find any sign of such occasions reported on by the media, although you should be aware of the fact that Disney can pretty much control its press like no other. Researcher goes to the parks, talks to a few people, and tries not to draw attention to himself. He'll just ask about 3 or 4 families that they've seen his friend who's wearing a funny mask. He's yet to see a gascot for himself, though on one occasion, a child pointed him towards Frontier Town. As he raced out to the crowd, he heard a single voice ahead cry out, Mommy, I want a goofy air mask too. A fellow I'll call the lifeguard worked at the Disney Water Park from 2001 to 2003. He stood at the top of a huge water slide and made sure none of the kids got too rowdy. He passed them through one at a time, telling them over and over to be safe, keep their arms in, and so on. One day, as he tells it, this fat kid goes down the tube and doesn't come out the other end. He sent 2 or 3 kids after. The whole thing moves at a steady clip. So usually you expect that if Fatty got stuck, the kids would have followed him would have got stuck too. That is not so. Only the big kid disappears. Everyone else comes out the other end, cheering and splashing like nothing's wrong. Lifeguard shuts down the slide to the aggravation of the kids waiting. But before he can go through any of these strict procedures that Disney has, splash. Fatty finally comes out. Staff members pulled the kid out of the water. He sank like a stone when he hit. His skin was already blue and his eyes wide. All he would say was, "No face, kids," and "Stop squeezing." The kid was okay, in case you were wondering. He got carted off right to the medical center. When the lifeguard was told to open the slide back up, he made a big stinking mistake on how it was clearly not safe. Despite his complaints, he was threatened with firing and begrudgingly opened the slide again. From every point on, he kept a closer eye on the patrons. Every so on, they come out of the wrong order, but not as stunned as the fat kid, but always with a vague look of concern, a dreamy half-stupor that seemed as if they were trying to figure out what was reality. They take on some more and choke a bit, but they never come back up to ride the slide again. I read his emails with the same sort of unease you might be feeling right now. I wanted to share his own story, but in the case he didn't want to expose himself in that way, I can't say I blame him. Snow White, which wasn't the actual role she played, was just a character in the park. She had a nice little tidbit for me. You know what happens when the costume employee drops dead in a suit? Like, one second he's taking a picture with little Jimmy, and the next he's had a fatal stroke. A second costume mascot in the area has to sit with a corpse on a curb or bench and wait for a designated dry cleaner to arrive and cart the body away in a discreet manner, while in the wild, patrons have no idea that they're sitting with a dead body for photo ops. Feel free to check your photo albums at this point. It was that bad, but another fellow janitor went off complete the creepy charts. Disney World, and probably others, is built with a series of underground tunnels just below your feet. 3 stories worth, anything and everything you can imagine is down there, for use of the employees only. They're called utility corridors. Basically, that's the reason you do not see characters out of the park, or out of place, or janitors wandering through the park. They pop in and out of these hidden doors and travel a concealed town that you're walking on. The janitors told me some that might be common knowledge, but was nothing less news to me. Walt Disney had several apartments built into his parks. There was one above Cinderella's castle. There's one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They're all over the place. More than that, there are nightclubs, a movie theater, a bowling alley, and much more. All behind doors built right into the whimsical facades you pass by without a second look. Club 22 is one such hidden area. If you have the money to join this exclusive club, which you probably don't, then you will have to access to it and more. Club 22 is a place where anything goes. Disney calls this place, or type of place, dark zones. Spots where the squeaky clean visage of Mickey Mouse gives way to drinking, drugs, and yes, other adult stuff. Conversely, the rest of the park is the bright zone, which a few gray zones utilidors between. As far as janitors said, it wasn't that way. It was much more of a slow decline and the gradual relaxation of social norms within the elite group. The reason why he knows all this is, you may have already guessed it, he's cleaned it. After a lengthy background check and a non-disclosure form, janitor moved up from the park attendant to one of the dark zone clean crew. Now, before you get some satanic human sacrifice vision in your head, janitor saw nothing of that sort. Just lots of empty alcohol bottles. Yes, scattered all over the place. And oh yeah, he cleaned his share of blood, piss, and vomit. But it was all down to unrestricted behavior of patrons as opposed to any sort of cult behavior. Well, that's at least how he sees them in retrospect. All that trash, that profane crap, went to a furnace and mingled with the smoke and the quaint cottage's chimney. If you've been to Disney World, you've probably breathed in ultra-condensed sin. Backing up this information was quote-unquote Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, though I don't know how he got my home address. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment with the instructions to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. He worked around Disney World Park doing the demolition and construction work. At one point, he approached his superior regarding some strange construction plans. There was wide rectangular area marked off on the blueprints, about the size of a supermarket. The area was left unnamed and only bore the words, "Do not dig." Not only was his superior in the dark, but he was super freaking purposefully in the dark. He didn't want it to talk about it, not wanting to talk about it, and ended the conversation with this space is intentionally left blank. Hammer did not get it. The air was like a waste of space, and it directly conflicting with the work his space team had given. He started poking around the area of his off time, finding only a I'm sorry if I can't say that. Steel door and the great span of concrete just beyond. It was a supermarket's worth of blank gray floor. Soon after, Hammer started picking gascots out of the crowds. Unlike all other reports, the things would just stand in full view of the guy. They clustered together in the distance, or they'd just be pressed against the wall when he turned the corner. He said they moved weird, like they were weak or injured, like a deer that's been run down by a hunter and can't flee anymore. The gascots, the Disney characters filled with filters jammed in. He noticed that the filter seemed wet on the inside, like condensation on the car window. Tiny beads of water glimmered through the glass, making it impossible for any of them to see. Going further, Hammer started asking the questions of anyone and everyone who had been working in the park for a decade or more. He hit dead ends throughout, until he was directed to Ida, an elderly woman who worked in the restaurant on Main Street. She had been there since way back. And though nobody had the balls to ask directly, everyone knew she had plenty of terrible stories to tell. Hammer asked about the empty space, and then about the gas mask customers. And at first, he thought he would receive the same non-answers he got so far. She was quiet, eerily quiet. "Room 0, she croaked, a single shaking hand placed onto her cheek as if she was a little child fearing a father's punishment. She didn't meet the man's gaze for the entire conversation. Room 0, as it turned out, was yet another hidden room, just like the apartments and Club 22. However, its sheer size and its spot deep beneath the fun park set it apart from any of the fun dark zones. It was a fallout shelter. Room 0 was built in to withstand a massive attack, be conducted by either foreign or domestic enemies. It was meant to be stocked with enough rations to feed the park's average number of patrons at any given moment, and housed a smaller yet lavish panic room of sorts for Disney higher-ups. You see, during World War II, official Disney gas masks were produced for children to wear in the event of a scary attack. The idea was that it would be less scary for the kids and patrons, and Mickey Mouse's face was emblazoned on the wartime safety device. Yes, I know the obvious problems were with that. During the Cold War scare of the 60s, when Disney World was constructed, Room 0 was stocked with similar masks, as well as they cared about the fears of the patrons or just call out brandings. The things just found their way down there. What's more, some genius decided that the kids would be frightened by the gas mask that the parents wore, and so all masks, adult and child, were made to comply with this insane standard. Ida described it as treating a wound with lemon juice. None of this was explained with what Hammer was seeing, though not only the seemingly supernatural appearances, but the empty out room as well. "I've been in there," he explained. "There's nothing but a cement floor and 4 walls. "No," Ida shook her head and covered her mouth, stifling a sob. "You've been on top of it." Someone or something sounded the alarm one day. When the park was at full capacity, the warning was clear. It was supposedly an air raid attack. Secretly ushered everyone down into the tremendous shelter. And there, the security were ordered to put on their masks and hunker down for the duration of the assault with the patrons. Everyone was quiet for about 30 minutes, save for the crying children and the frightened whispers. No one wanted to die, and they were thankful in a way for the strange matter of safety. Then, the first scream rang out. "Hey!" a man shouted. "Quit pinching!" Waves of shrieks and yelps rippled through the crowd, from one wall to the other, back and forth. "Who's running around? Settle down," someone said. "Who's laughing? This isn't funny." "Ow, who stepped on my foot?" Despite security guards urging to calm down and keep their cool, the crowd just got more and more agitated, until, after an hour of madness, the lights flickered and died. What could only be described as utter chaos. In the dark, only the wails of the young and the anguished cries of adults could be heard in the massive swelling din that bloodied the ears within the black echo chamber. A group of staff members and a select few patrons made it out the door, ready to face the battle above rather than the insanity below. But what they found, of course, was a desolate yet untouched theme park. The music continued to play, echoing through the silent storybook towns. Upon returning to room 0, the few who stood at the top of the staircase that led down to the pitch darkness heard no sign of the previous fray. There was only silence. Ida herself descended that staircase despite the begging of those that she left above. She reached the reinforced doors, herself now awash in darkness and hearing only the buzzing in her ears. A single voice came out of the darkness. The echo made it impossible to tell whether the mocking, raspy voice was at the back of the bomb shelter or was right in front of her face. "Shut the door, dear. You're laying out the cold." Gripped by terror, she did that. Within days, the entire thing, staircase, shelter, all of it was covered with feet upon feet of cement. Air systems and generators above its ceilings were removed, creating the large empty space. "They're all still down there," Ida told Hammer. "Down there with whoever that was." You might notice that I've used Ida's name. Unfortunately, she passed away soon after telling her story. Accidental fall, supposedly, after getting out of bed to turn on the light. Such a company devotee, the paper reported, that her entire bedroom was covered with Mickey silhouettes. And Slime Beast has done it again with another Disney World creepypasta. Now, I am kind of surprised that there was no blood cliche, because trust me, the blood cliche in this would be really stupid, and I'm really glad that they did not do it. But the way how they did the story in a way, it really adds to creepiness and eerie factor, especially with Room 0 being a fallout shelter. Because trust me, like, it was a real thing, the Cold War, WW2 and all that stuff. But the thing is, there's only one cliche I can think about is, like, what do you think set off the alarm in the story? Like, it doesn't really tell what really set off the alarm, unless it was, like, some idiot that pressed it by accident, or like an actual foreign or domestic enemy, but we don't know because it never really told us. But this is like a sequel to, Abandoned by Disney, and Slime Beast did really good on this story. And what do you think would make it better? Feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. And also, we're almost at 1,000 videos. I have a plan for my 1,000 video, like an action figure showcase, so stay tuned for that. This is Jeffrey Sambrowski, signing out.